Welcome to another episode of the Football Palestine Extra podcast, where we take everything that's happened this week in the wonderful world of Palestinian football and give it to you in this nicely condensed audio visual format. If you're new to the podcast, you probably found me because I've been recording a video for all 104 matches at the FIFA World Cup, or maybe you saw one of my articles in Middle East Eye, Al Jazeera, New Arab, Arab News that has come out over the duration of this tournament. In that case, welcome. And you are now seeing something that I usually have reserved for our premium subscribers. So this podcast usually sits behind a paywall, or the majority of it will sit behind a paywall. And it's kind of like a perk for those subscribers who are paying for the content we put out here. Now, I try and keep most of the content free, but if you're a paying subscriber, there are certain perks you get. And in fact, if you go to footballpalestine.com and look at the header, the menu in the header, you will see a section called subscriber perks, and you might have missed some of the perks. Let me run you through what the perks are. So if you are a paying subscriber, you will get access to in-depth stats. So Football Palestine is the only place where every goal has been recorded, every match. It's something like 220 something matches since 1998 have been recorded. 30 something matches before FIFA affiliation also recorded there, with the starting lineups, with who scored. Since 2015, we've been keeping track of assists. So if you subscribe to Football Palestine, you get access to a Google Sheet doc with all that information that is updated after every single national team game, or very close to after every single national team game. You also get 10% off of Subside Sports and the Palestine apparel they are selling. So if you want a Palestine shirt, I think the jerseys are sold out because Kelme has stopped producing, because they will come out with the 2027 Asian Cup jersey in the next couple of months, but you get 10% off of that. And you also get access to an audio series that I did called Scoreless at the Break, which basically tells the story of the national team 20 years ago, and it uses that story to explain the schism that happened between Hamas and Fatah, which is obviously very relevant for what's going on today. Speaking of what's going on today, we've got 3 blocks to discuss. And if you're new here, once again, what I've done is I've made the entirety of these podcast episodes free for the duration of the World Cup. So this is the last free episode, last completely free episode that we'll be doing before we kind of go back to the regular methodology with these things. So 3 blocks that I want to discuss. Because the World Cup is on, I feel like we have to discuss it a little bit, and I want to discuss it from a Palestinian perspective. What we have, what don't we have, how can we improve? Because let's face it, when the final whistle sounds on Sunday night or Sunday afternoon or early Monday morning, depending where you live, for me, I think this is one of the most beautiful things, because it basically brings the 4 years to a close. Then you wake up the next morning, and okay, Spain or Argentina will have another star on their chest, and they will be celebrating and they'll be in the euphoria. But everybody else goes back to the drawing board and starts planning for 2030. And basically, all the national teams are equal. You've got a champion that's kind of above the rest, but even they're equal because they have to qualify for the World Cup now. Although both Argentina and Spain are co-hosts, so I guess they're not sort of equal. And then everyone just starts thinking about, okay, how can we get to the next World Cup? Even if you were at this World Cup, even if you were a semifinalist, you're thinking, how can we get to the World Cup? So if you are a supporter of a national team like myself, then you start thinking about that. And you can kind of let go of the trauma of how you were eliminated. So I am looking forward to Monday morning. But before we get to that, let's discuss two I think, very important news items. The U20 team and Oday Dabbagh. I will start with Oday Dabbagh. And I mentioned this in a previous episode. I think Oday Dabbagh is going to leave Zamalek. And I thought that before this news story came out, which is not really a news story. I mean, players have lives. Things happen in our lives. Oday Dabbagh got into a car accident. Thankfully, he escaped unscathed. The car that he was in suffered heavy damage. And for some reason, the Egyptian media has made this into a huge story, like he somehow took advantage of the owner of the car, which I find very strange, because yeah, you get into a car accident, usually there's insurance, or if you have a car, usually it's the club that's paying for it. So it doesn't seem to me like it's a story, uh, but they've made it into a story. And why have they made it into a story? Well, they've made it into a story, I think, to kind of facilitate the exit of Oday Dabbagh, because Zamalek is a club that is heavily indebted. And because they're heavily indebted, they have to sell players. And we've already seen that in the transfer market. One of the few moves that we've seen happen post World Cup is Abdelmajid, the Egyptian and Zamalek center back. He's gone to Ludogorets Raskar. That's a team that's dominated the Bulgarian league over the past decade. They didn't win the league last year, but he's gone on a fee of 1.5 million euros, marketed as sort of a loan fee, and then an obligation to buy. And then there's a 20% built-in clause if they sell him on for more than 4 million euro. They've got to clear wages, and they've got to raise some money, because Zamalek owes money to just about everybody. And so if they can get money off of Oday Dabbagh, they will take it, and they will gladly clear his salary. Now, from my understanding, the release clause is 1.5 million euro. That is a bargain. That's really, really, really a bargain. That also means that basically a club in Saudi Arabia can buy him, in the UAE, in Qatar, even a Kuwaiti club, if they wanted to, and if he wanted to go, could buy him. This is not a huge transfer fee. It also means modest European clubs that can pay his wages, which will be in the high six figures you would estimate, will be able to pay this transfer fee to Zamalek and secure his services, and basically get the exclusive right to negotiate. So I do think that Oday Dabbagh will move, and I think the story will develop. And the story really isn't about him being in the car accident. It's what that actually means in the larger scheme of things. And I think what that means is Zamalek is trying to create a false sense of crisis, so they can go to their fans and say, hey, the man that delivered us our first title in 4 years, and our top scorer? Yeah, he's gone now. So that's what I think will happen. Okay, continuing to our second block, and that is the U20 team. And I wrote about this on the website earlier this week, and I really do think that Palestine's path to the 2030 World Cup starts with this team. And if this team does not end up qualifying, let's say, which is, I think, a distinct possibility, then you sort of have to say, okay, it doesn't mean necessarily that Palestine's path to the 2030 World Cup is doomed. But if they do qualify, then I think it creates an interesting proposition, because then you'll have this group of talented youngsters playing at the highest level in Asia, and basically showing what they can do. And then that has a knock-on effect, because if they can go one better, maybe they can get to a U20 World Cup. If they can go one better, then a lot of them will graduate to the U23 team, and they'll try and qualify for the Olympics. And if you have players that are getting that type of experience, well, then you have a natural kind of talent pool to draw on to renew the national team. And I do think that's going to end up being an issue as some of these players get older, right? Like, Damascene is one guy that I think probably will retire after the Asian Cup. Mustafa Al-Battat is still going strong, but you do want younger players behind them. There are several midfielders also that are above the age of 30. And with the Palestinian players, it's not like players from other countries where they stay quite fit into their 30s. The cliff for a national team player tends to be at around 30. And then, yeah, if you're playing past 30, you're actually something of a special breed in the Palestine national team. So for this team to go and do well would be huge for two reasons. One, we've never done well at youth level. I've spoken about this several times, that for all the success we've had with our men's national team at senior level, at youth level has been bad. And there's only been one success. And that success was the 2018 Under-23 Asian Cup. We qualified because we hosted the group. We got off to a horrible start in that group because we drew against Tajikistan. It set up a must-win against Jordan. We were down 2-0, and then the mother of all comebacks, maybe the best comeback in Palestinian football, win that game 3-2, beat Bangladesh in the last game, win the group and qualify. And then at the finals, you're in a group of Japan, North Korea, Thailand, lose narrowly to Japan, draw North Korea, big win against Thailand gets you to the quarterfinals, and they end up losing to Qatar, a Qatar team that the spine of that team ends up winning the Asian Cup with the senior team 12 months later. So a good achievement in hindsight, but something that we've never been able to build on. And so just qualifying for an under 20 World Cup, under 20 Asian Cup, excuse me, would be huge, would be absolutely huge. And it also would mean that we are also now tapping into a new source of talent strategically, because we've always gone into the diaspora and tried to get players to raise the level. But I don't think we've done it with a coherent plan. And what I mean is, sure, go out into the diaspora and get players. But if you're getting them to commit at senior level, it's not that they can't help, it's that it ends up being a bit of an awkward fit. And I think any sort of player that comes and they're in their mid to late 20s to the national team, chances of their success goes down. And it goes down because they've got to integrate, right? Like in a lot of cases, sometimes these guys don't even speak Arabic. So there's a language barrier, there's a stylistic barrier, there's just the barrier to understanding how to play with these new group of guys that you haven't grown up with. If, on the other hand, you bring them in at youth level, then they start to get acclimated. They start to get acclimated to the culture. They start to get acclimated to the language. They start to get acclimated to their teammates. And the progression seems almost natural. And the biggest evidence we have of that is Khalid Dabbagh. Khalid Dabbagh has played for Palestine at under 19 level, at under 20 level, at under 23 level. And him getting to the national team is a natural progression of him growing up, improving, maintaining, and being given basically a reward for playing well at youth level and playing well for his club and showing that, hey, I can help. You've got this shortage at center back. I can be one of the solutions for you. And that needs to be the model. And we've seen that a little bit, but if I'm really scratching my head to think about a guy from the diaspora that played for us at youth level and then graduated. There's Michel Termanini, but also Michel Termanini, people forget, got that opportunity with the senior team in like 2018. So right off the back of the under 23 Asian Cup, made a senior team debut. And then we didn't hear from him again until 2023, which was just a huge oversight in my opinion. I do think that Michel Termanini should have been on that 2019 Asian Cup squad. And I think he should have even played, right? Because the reason our 2019 Asian Cup didn't go so well is because we didn't have any center backs, and the coach at the time panicked and played Musab Batat as a center back against Australia, and that was just one of the worst decisions in the history of the national team. But again, like, let's really scratch our heads here. Other than Michel Termanini, who can you actually think, who can you name that was there at youth level and then graduated to the senior team from the diaspora? I can't, I mean, I might be blanking. There might be somebody really obvious. But yeah, I do think that like, it's an oversight. So what we need to happen is we need to graduate more talents from the youth teams, whether they're born in the diaspora, whether they're born at home, it doesn't matter. And that's going to help us maintain the level and even improve the level of this team. Because when we're talking about the cycle and the hopes we have, we just hope that we can be just that much better, because we didn't miss out on the World Cup by all that much. You think about how the games went, and you're talking about 1 point from getting to round 4. But also, if you really think about it, we could have beaten Korea in that first game. We should have beaten Kuwait. Those are 2 points that could have been 4. Or 2 points that could have been 6, a 4-point gap. So all of a sudden you're thinking, instead of 10 points, you have 14 points. And then in the last game, right? What happens if you win that? Well, instead of 1, you get 3 points. So now you're up to 16. And that's what Jordan qualified on, right? Jordan qualified on 16 points from 10 games. So yeah, it's not that we missed by all that much, But at the end of the day, we did what we did. Obviously, we're playing with a massive disadvantage in the fact that we cannot host games. But in order to kind of bridge that gap, you have to be not the same and luckier. You have to be better and not needing of the luck. And again, we paid the small team tax, in my opinion, with a lot of the refereeing decisions in round 3 the last time around. Maybe because we kicked up a storm after what happened against Oman. Maybe because it'll be our second time around there, hopefully, should we qualify that far. We won't have to pay that tax again. But again, the planning starts from now. And if we just look at what this national team has done so far and compare it to where we were this time in the cycle the last time around, I think we have figured some things out. Still some question marks here and there. We've spoken about it time and time again about we need more center backs, we need younger center backs, we need to find some other elements in the team. But I think we are on the path, and we are cognizant of what needs to be done. And I think there's a belief in the side. There's also belief amongst the players, there's belief amongst the coaches that, hey, we can do this, that this is not a pipe dream. Whereas I think 2026, 2022, 2018, definitely 2018 was just a pipe dream. Nobody was actually thinking seriously of qualifying for the World Cup. So with that, I have some observations that I jotted down about this World Cup. And I always thinking of it with the Palestinian perspective. The first thing I'm going to start with really is I'm going to rail on some of these influencers. If you're like an influencer or you do like social media content, I don't know what you would call yourself, and you're like Palestinian or Arab, but you have so much invested in the success of Lionel Messi or Cristiano Ronaldo or France or whomever, you're a loser. I'm just gonna say it right then and there. You're just like, stop it. Like, stop doing it. You're a loser. France doesn't care about you. Portugal doesn't care about you. Argentina doesn't care about you. The players that you love so much don't care about you. You guys have nothing in common. You don't speak the language. Honestly, a disaster has befallen us over the past couple of years. The players in those teams don't care about you. Okay? So stop posting pictures and video of you crying or defending the honor of Lionel Messi or Cristiano Ronaldo. If you're Palestinian, okay, and you want a team to cheer for at the World Cup, you cheer for the Arab teams. That's your option, okay? If you're Palestinian hyphen something else, right? We can give you a pass. You can support the country of your birth, or the country of your other parent, whatever it may be. But if you're just some dude sitting in an Arab capital, hyping up Messi, hyping up France, and then making excuses like double down, like when people say, oh, you know what, this, that, and then they double down and they have like some crazy defense about how that's not the case. Stop it. You're a loser. And you know what? Fans of those countries, nobody in France now is going to be like, oh, well, France is out, I'm going to support Lionel Messi. No. Nobody in Spain says, oh, well, Spain is out, so I support this team. No. Okay? You support your national team. And failing that, okay, because we're Arabs, you can support other Arab national teams. So as far as I'm concerned, this tournament ended when Morocco went out. And even when I was watching these Arab teams, I was not suffering like I suffer when I watch my national team, because they're not my national team. They're a team that I want to do well because of the commonalities we have linguistically, culturally, because of some of the football overlaps we have. As I mentioned many a time, that 24 out of the 26 players in the Egypt squad either play or have played with a Palestine national team player before. But, I'm over the result between Egypt and Argentina because I'm not Egyptian. So yeah, it was tough to watch in real time. You're down for like 24 hours. I'm still processing what the hell happened to us against Oman because it's not my national team. So yeah, I suppose it's a free country, and if you want to cheer for these teams that you have no connection to, you can do it. but do me a favor and stop acting like you have skin in the game. You don't. And so maybe this is not a message for the people who subscribe to Football Palestine, but I know there's probably people in your circles that need to listen to this and really look at themselves in the mirror and say, like, what are you doing? That's completely cringe. So that out of the way, here are some things that I think that a good national team has. And I'm going to start with one that's very controversial. They don't have a foreign manager. No foreign manager has ever won the World Cup with a national team that they didn't belong to. So, and I'm gonna stand by that as well. I think the world that we live in today in 2026 is so interconnected. There's so much information readily available to everyone right now that this sort of idea that, there's like a siloed secret and it's only in Europe or it's only in South America and we have to contract someone from there so they could share the secret with us is a thing of the past. And let's look at the People's Champion. I think the People's Champion of this World Cup was Cabo Verde. Who leads Cabo Verde? Well, Cape Verdean and Babista. Most successful Arab teams at this World Cup. Did anyone know who Mohamed Wahbi was before this World Cup? Not really. I mean, if you follow Moroccan football, you'll know that he won the Under-20 World Cup. But I don't think a lot of people would have said, he's going to have this much success because, he knows the Moroccan player. But lo and behold, he came in a couple months' time, completely overhauled the way Morocco played, picked the right players for his system, and I think they had a brilliant World Cup. It ended on a sour note with the way they lost to France, but you drop Brazil, you knock out the Netherlands, playing better football than the Netherlands, you completely sweep aside Canada, you sweep aside Scotland and Haiti, no problem. And people are not even talking about you being an underdog, but they're expecting you to get back to a semifinal. Who did that work? Walid Regragui, Mohamed Wahbi. That's who did that work. People who knew Moroccan football intimately. Egypt. Probably the one thing the dictator, Sisi, has said in his tenure that is 100% true was, why hire a foreign manager? They're not successful and they cost more. Just bring the local guy. The foreign guys foreign guys aren't doing it, so might as well get a local guy. And lo and behold, I don't know if the EFA took that as direction, but a couple of days after he said that statement, after Egypt exited the 2023 African Cup of Nations, they hired Hussam Hassan. Hussam Hassan is a very temperamental person, said some crazy stuff, acts unhinged at times, but he knows the Egyptian league, he knows Egyptian clubs, he knows Egyptian players. So he qualified easily for the World Cup, which people dismissed. I thought they had a good African Cup of Nations. That game against Senegal when they were super negative did not help matters. But we had a good World Cup. They were undefeated in the group. They almost beat Argentina. Go and show me some foreign manager that's going to do that. And probably the only thing I could think about from Palestine's perspective that would make sense as far as a foreign manager concerned is maybe you get an Arab manager, right? Because Jamal Salami was successful with Jordan. I thought Jordan had a good World Cup performance-wise, maybe not so much results-wise. But I think they did themselves proud. And that happened with Jamal Salami, who also got them there. But Jamal Salami is an Arab who speaks Arabic. So, bringing in a guy and then, he has to have his little translator next to him to get his message across to the players. It's just not a recipe for success. Look what Saudi Arabia did. Even with a guy who's lived in Saudi Arabia for years and coached in the league and supposedly knows the players. Come on. What was that? It was an atrocious performance. Even on the other end of the spectrum, England. Thomas Tuchel doesn't understand mentality, emotion, all that stuff. Lionel Scaloni does. That was a big part of the big difference in that match, in that semi-final the other day, is that Lionel Scaloni knows what Argentine football is. He knows his players. He knows exactly what buttons to press to get a reaction. Thomas Tuchel doesn't. So I think a lot of people push back. I know a lot of people are just going to say, get a foreigner. No. I do think Ihab Abujazar is not the perfect coach. I do think he has his limitations, but I don't know of a foreign manager that can come into this situation and be successful, because the situation is not an ideal situation. It is not something that is going to generate success. So with that being said, then you're left with a Palestinian pool of candidates. Should Ihab Abujazar leave the post? Yeah, I think there are a couple of guys you can go to that have their badges. Former national team players, probably former national team players that did their badges in the countries of their birth, right? I don't know if Ahmad Zatara has all his badges, but he's probably working on them. Pablo Abdullah has all his badges. He could coach the team. I'm racking my head a little bit, but I'm sure there are other names that could come in and coach this team again that know Palestinian football and know Palestinian footballers. And it's a little bit scary to kind of go and give the top job to somebody who's inexperienced, but you are overlooking the experience and the emotional intelligence they do have and that they've gathered as players. And yeah, I think that is super, super important. So that's one of the big lessons I took from this World Cup. The second one is identity. And you have to, as a national team, really lean into whatever your identity is. You can try and change the style of play, all that stuff, but the base has to be the identity. And if you look at this World Cup final, Spain and Argentina, you're talking about two teams that know their identity. Spain doesn't care about what your favorite pundit has to say about them not having a traditional center forward. They don't care if somebody says their style is boring. They don't care. Why? Because they know what they're doing. They're controlling games. And through control, they win games. Argentina, at the same time, also does not care for your criticisms. It doesn't care that you think, oh my God, they're super vicious and they're cynical and they'll go and they'll dive and they'll fight. They don't care because they know that part of their ethos is they're fighters. And I saw this interview with Marcelo Bielsa, who didn't have the best World Cup. Not a foreign manager, they didn't have a good World Cup with Uruguay. But Marcelo Bielsa, for my money, is probably the best coach that ever existed, best tactician that ever existed. And he said, listen, the Argentine style of play is associated with the player. And the Argentine player is a guy who fights, and he will continue to fight because he hates losing. So he doesn't know when he's beaten. So what does that mean for Palestine? Well, it means a couple of things. One is that we do have an identity, I think. And the identity is maybe not as vicious as the Argentine identity, because I don't think we are that tough in our tackling or that cynical with our play acting. But what are we called? We're called El Fidai. We are a group of fighters. We are a team that is probably not, I don't know if we're going to evolve into this team that wins games easily, but we're a team that knows how to suffer. And I think that takes you a long way, because the World Cup, getting to it, competing in it, winning it, is a fight. At some point, you got to put style on the side. At some point, you got to put the system to the side. And you just have to say, okay, we have a basic structure. We have a basic plan. But the players are entrusted to manage the game. And they manage the game the way they know how. And for us, that is similar to Argentina's fighting. So I don't think you can go and put Spain's style in Palestine. I don't think it will work. It certainly will not work without an insane amount of investment. But we need to lean into that. We definitely need to lean into that, because if you lean into the identity and then supplement that with good coaching and tactics and the right players, then I think you can have good results. So that was the second thing that I really noticed. The third thing, don't defend too deep. And I think Palestine learned that against Oman. Never, ever, ever, ever try and defend a result too early. Go and get the second goal. Get the second goal, and preferably even maybe get the third. But the time for defending is in the dying embers of the match. Last 5 minutes. maybe 10 minutes, right? I say last 5 minutes because you tend to have now 7-8 minutes of time added on. Defending deep is a disaster. It's a disaster. Um, it's a disaster when trying to manage a result. It's a disaster as a strategy to try and get a result from a game. Saudi Arabia against Spain really stood out for me. Saudi Arabia is not even a team that knows how to defend deep. I don't think I've ever seen them defend deep. They played 5 at the back against Spain, and they just invited the pressure and it didn't work. They were better off going and playing their game. Look at Cabo Verde. Cabo Verde did defend, but they defended smartly. They defended space. They didn't sit back. They defended space. They didn't commit a lot of fouls either in that game. And they were confident enough to play their style. And, last 20 minutes were, I think, a very interesting game where Cabo Verde had their chances in those last 20 minutes. And you could tell that this was a team that knew what they were doing because they got results in every single game they played, including the game that they were eliminated in against Argentina, because that game ended 1-1 after 90 minutes. So don't defend too deep. Fourth thing, subs. Oh my God, subs are super important. And if these hydration breaks, which I think have been just absolute disaster for football, if the hydration breaks become a fixture in international football, then subs are going to be super important, as well as the tactical sort of discussions that happen in the hydration breaks, because they can kill the momentum of the other team if you know how to use them properly. And I do think that two of the best managers in using the hydration break to their advantage have been Thomas Tuchel and Lionel Scaloni. What they did for their teams, Tuchel especially in the game against DR Congo. Without the hydration break, I think England probably goes out against DR Congo. As controversial that is to say, England were completely different proposition in the first and second half after the hydration break. Argentina, hydration break bailed them out against Egypt, and it bailed them out against England. It's definitely a factor in why they're here. So the substitutions that you make and the tactical adjustments that you make in the hydration break, super important. Super, super important. So you better have some game changers, because this is the second World Cup in the era of 5 substitutions. And basically, if you think about what football was like before, you'd have 3 substitutions. You'd keep one in your back pocket for injury late on. So you wouldn't really use it. You'd have 2. Basically, one like for like, one tactical. And that was it. So what you go in as game plan A tends to be game plan A for the remainder of the match. Very, very, very rarely do you see someone making huge changes to the plan by using like the 3 substitutions before the 60-minute mark. Now it's very common. So super, super, super important. And then the final thing, the thing I think Palestine has. You want to do well at a World Cup or an Asian Cup? You better have an elite goalkeeper, or at least a good goalkeeper, a solid goalkeeper, because so many campaigns that could have been were ended prematurely because a goalkeeper made a simple mistake. Senegal against Belgium comes to mind. Big, big mistake. I know it wasn't Edouard Mendy because he was injured and the substitute came in, but big mistake. Killed their chances at this World Cup, because I think they could have gone past the United States, and after that, who knows? Belgium, Thibaut Courtois comes out, Lemons is in. He shouldn't be spilling that ball, and that's what basically puts Belgium out of the World Cup. At the group stage, basically, how many Asian teams were undone by really poor goalkeeping? Iraq, oh my God, horrible. Jordan, not much better. So the fact that we have Rami Hamada, I think, is huge for us. And a little stat for you. If you're a premium subscriber, you might already know this, but Rami Hamada has 65 international caps to his name, so 65 official matches with the national team. Unai Simon, Spain's goalkeeper, has 65. Unai Simon has 30 clean sheets, 49 goals allowed. Rami Hamada, 65 games, just as many as Unai Simon. 33 clean sheets, 3 more than Unai Simon. He's allowed 58 goals, so 9 more than Unai Simon. But think about that. And you might say, oh, but Unai Simon faces better teams. Sure. He also faces some poor teams in qualifying as well. Also, sometimes he doesn't have a save to make because he's a really good defense in front of him. Mohamed Hamada plays with Mohamed Salah in front of him sometimes. that's huge for us. So, I do think we have enough elements. I mentioned we don't have a foreign manager. It seems like we have an identity. Don't defend too deep. I don't think we do. I think we defend space very well. I think we do have we're still developing, but I think we do have our style of play. Subs, I think he has been okay. He's shown that he can change games through a couple of substitutions. Elite goalkeeper we have. What are we missing? Well, we're missing probably ball carriers, and I've said that multiple times. Hopefully we can see more of Adam Kaid, more of Mohamed Habous, more of Badr Musa, whomever it may be, come in and provide us with that. But overall, watching this World Cup, it's never seemed more possible. And I just wanted to go through some of these things that have been the bedrock of success for so many teams, and just go through them and show you guys that, hey, it's not that far away. It's not that far away. So I personally, I'm looking forward to the day after the World Cup, because it means we'll have the Asian Cup to look forward to. And then after that, we'll have World Cup qualifying starting in November 2027. And then we can start thinking really about qualifying for the 2030 World Cup. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you for that. Premium subscribers, again, to get all those perks that I mentioned at the top of this video, I will leave a link to a discount offer, 40% off for anybody who wants to become a paying subscriber and take advantage of all the perks we give premium subscribers here at Football Palestine. If you can afford it, it would really mean a lot to me if you could upgrade that subscription. So we're going to leave it here for now. Enjoy the third place playoff on Saturday and the World Cup final on Sunday. And we'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.